Well, it may all come down to today for the looming debt ceiling crisis in Washington. The Treasury Secretary has warned the country could run out of money to pay its bills by June 1st.
Yeah, so President Biden is meeting with congressional leaders at the White House this afternoon, but time is ticking. The Treasury Secretary says it's likely the U.S. will default on its debt in just about 2 weeks. If a deal isn't reached, the crisis could get tossed to the Supreme Court. Professor Josh Blackman with South Texas College of Law joins us live to break this all down. So, Josh, there are a few options here. Reach a deal or invoke the 14th Amendment. That's what President Biden can do. Explain that strategy.
Well, the 14th Amendment was passed in the wake of the Civil War. And most people know it because it protects the rights of life and liberty and property and equal protection of the law. But it also has a sort of obscure provision that says the public debt shall not be questioned. This was passed after the Civil War to make sure that Confederates could not basically cancel or wipe out any sorts of debts imposed by that war. It's never been used in this fashion before to address the current debt ceiling. But some people think that the president has the power to simply continue issuing new bonds, that is, new debt, even though Congress hasn't raised the debt ceiling. This is a very novel argument.
Well, Josh, has the High Court ever heard a debt ceiling debate?
Nothing even remotely close to this. There are only a few cases involving the 14th Amendment's public debt clause, and they're not really similar. But the argument goes that President Biden could basically treat the debt ceiling as non-binding, as non-required, because he has a constitutional obligation to ensure the debt of the United States is not questioned. So he could issue new bonds. He could issue the infamous $1 trillion platinum coin. Yes, you heard me right. He could ask the government to mint a coin that's worth $1 trillion that would basically raise the government's credit and allow it to issue more debt. So there's some various options that could be issued, none of which are particularly certain.
So President Biden can't seem to come to an agreement with Congress. Why is this so divisive? What seem to be the biggest sticking points right now?
The sticking point is not legal, it's political. As I understand it, the Republicans want to tie an increase in the debt limit to cuts in spending. In other words, if we're going to borrow more, we should cut more spending. And the president's taken the posture that he'll accept no spending cuts. This is hostage taking, and that any sort of increase in the credit limit should be sort of clean without any conditions put on it. So we are at a political impasse. And when you have a political impasse, people turn to the Constitution to try to figure a way around that political gridlock.
Josh, at the same time, you know, they're trying to figure out how to pay their debt. Americans are facing more than $17 trillion in debt for the first time ever. That is a new number that just came out. What will the average American notice here if the debt ceiling is not raised?
Well, what will immediately happen is that various creditors will downgrade American credit, and it may become harder to borrow money. Maybe also be possible the government stops making payments. People who receive money from the government may stop getting checks in the mail, or at least in direct deposit. So there might be some immediate consequences that people feel.
All right. Thank you, Josh Blackman, for filling us in, giving us a whole rundown on what could be ahead.
Thank you.